The last supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable W.M. Thring.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Mr. President, the power crisis is devastating households and businesses, eroding the nation's economic growth prospects, disrupting power supply chains, and stoking inflation. Public anger is understandably growing around the government's inability to deal with the crisis. The Electricity Minister, Ramaphosa, has warned that South Africans could face a cold winter that may include stage 8 power cuts. This is unprecedented, with stage 6 load shedding having 8 hours or so of cuts, stage 8 up to 12 hours, and stage 9 and 10 too ghastly to contemplate. Now, Mr. President, the North Gauteng High Court found that it is clear that whatever, and I quote, it is clear that whatever the president and his cabinet ministers averred, the consequences of policy decisions resulted in the current need by Eskom to continue to implement various stages of load shedding. In other words, Mr. President, you and your cabinet failed to keep the lights on. Now, taking the public into your confidence, would the president agree that government's attempts to solve the energy crisis have failed spectacularly? And what responsibility and further initiatives, if any, do you as the head of state and cabinet take for the energy and resultant economic quagmire our country faces? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Thring. The President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I deny completely that we have completely failed in our attempts to deal with this crisis. We continue to take a number of measures and actions on a continuous basis. When I stood here and announced the Energy Action Plan, it was welcomed by all and sundry as being a very rational plan that would address our energy crisis. We hadn't then foreseen that our energy availability factor would decline further than where it was at the time. We hadn't then foreseen that 3 units of Kusile would just collapse. We hadn't foreseen that a number of others in other power stations, Creel and all that, would also collapse. That is something from an engineering point of view had not been foreseen. But the measures that we've been putting in place, as I said in our Energy Action Plan, was to embark on new generation. New generation is underway right now of a variety of sources. One of the things I also said in 2019, standing here in this parliament, actually it was in the State of the Nation, I said we needed emergency power. And we needed emergency power of some 3,000 megawatt, I said. And that process got underway. It has been stopped by interventions that are completely out of government's hands. Stopped by either various non-governmental organizations who've taken the process to court, environmental issues have been raised, and that is what has put the brakes on what I would call immediate emergency power that could have been brought to bear. And I still say today, what South Africa needs right now is emergency energy that we can bring in. Other countries have done so, and I've been to a few countries on our continent. They have done so. They brought in ships that are able to generate energy and immediately solve their energy challenges and problems. And I do believe that that is the way to go right now, to add those megawatts that we don't have, while we wait for the construction of the other renewable energy sources, as well as the revamping or the repair of our baseload coal-fired power stations that are being worked on after years of no maintenance. And part of our plan is also to work on demand management. Part of our plan is to also work on rooftop solar installations. Now, those are interventions that are going to help to reduce the pressure on the grid and add more energy sources to our electricity overall landscape. So those initiatives, which have been validated by many, are underway. We're repairing our power stations, we're maintaining them. And when you maintain the power stations, you have to take it out of the grid. And sometimes it goes on for much longer than you wanted. So we're dealing with big machinery here, and we're dealing with suppliers that are big original equipment manufacturers that manufacture for the whole world. And they don't wait in line just for South Africa. So when we have a generator that is broken down, we wait in line. But the initiatives we are taking is that we will add other sources of energy, which we are doing. And soon there will be a further round of procurement that is going to add more megawatts. So all that is ongoing, and we aim, as this reaches fruition, to bring load shedding under control and to an end. And that is precisely what all these three ministers are doing. Ministers of Public Enterprises is dealing with the restructuring of Eskom, so that we have a transmission company, so that that transmission company is then able to put in investments in the transmission lines so that they can absorb new energy generation. Minister of Electricity focuses on generation, and Minister of Energy and Mineral Resources focuses on the policy, the procurement process, and all that. So that is the architecture that we've put in place. And we are not sleeping on the job, and we are hoping that all these efforts will lead to the solution that the people of South Africa want to see. Thank you very much.
I thank you, Honorable the President.